the strategies were a little bit different depending on what we were dealing with. But there was organized retail theft, there was less organized, and then there was theft that we were getting that was coming from an area that we hadn't thought of before, which was from foreign nationals. So we started putting strategies together, foot patrols, analytics, more data-driven than the past, but also working on the internet side of it, because we knew when people were stealing this, they were reselling it at different locations, but a lot of it was being done on the internet. So there was a lot of different motives, a lot of different reasons, but the one number that kept jumping out at us is that every month we were getting more and more foreign nationals that we in the Chicago Police Department were arresting in the Michigan Avenue area for retail theft. We started pursuing these cases on many levels, not just the criminal charge of it, but to find out what, if anything, was going on beyond the obvious. What we found was that in many cases, I'm not talking one or two, in many cases, upon interviewing the individual that we took into custody, they told us almost identical stories, that they were being either told to steal things to get money or specifically directed to steal specific things, all of which were then taken back to individuals where they were then being able to either buy or trade for Social Security numbers, cards, or American Permanent Residency cards. And this story we were getting over and over again. So we did an undercover operation as a result of that. We got enough information to direct us where this was going on. We then worked on this thing for a couple of weeks, and then we started buying some of these phony cards ourselves. At the conclusion of that, we executed a search warrant, and during the course of it, this is what we got. And what we got was almost 500 different IDs, Social Security numbers, American Permanent Residency cards as well. All of these were things that the different individuals that we were taking into custody were telling us they were doing so they can then go about getting a job themselves, so they can make some money. And this was something that was somewhat expansive, as you can tell. So we made the arrest of the three individuals. The three individuals that we arrested are individuals who are foreign nationals as well. It appears as if they'd been doing this for some time. But it drives home, really, what we have been talking about for the longest time here, which is that the individuals that we talk about frequently, the migrants, the foreign nationals, these are very difficult, complex issues. And as a result of that, so many of the things that we don't think about are underlying different things that are going on. Underlying that meaning that a lot of these folks are purely trying to steal so they can get IDs, so they can get a job, so they can make some money. And so that is driving home to us what the obvious is, which is this complex issue that people in Washington talk a great deal about needs to be addressed for multiple reasons, but not the least of which it's impacting our local communities. Because individuals who have come to this country are finding attempting other ways to try to survive. And this is something that, as I said, the numbers are staggering, as you can see behind me. They're increasing exponentially every month. So driving home the notion, we have to address this issue. Thank you. Anybody have questions?
Obviously, the sale of illegal documents has been going on, for decades. But have you seen an increase in the traffic of these types of documents ever since the migrant crisis began?
What we're seeing is that you're correct. The sale of these documents have gone on forever. What we're seeing is there's this direct connection between the retail thefts going on in an area and turning it around immediately to get IDs. So the fact that people have been buying and selling illegal IDs forever has gone on. But to see this direct connection, we're literally, some of the people we have taken into custody have told us they were literally directed on what to steal, how much to steal that would get you this ID and that ID. So this is very different in that respect. And so we hadn't seen that before. And as I said, the numbers keep going up here.
And the people that, and I apologize if I missed this, the people that you say are being directed to steal these things, are they migrants themselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on both sides of it. Both the individuals we took into custody we have as foreign nationals the people that, trust me, we take a lot of people in custody for retail theft, but the group that is growing so exponentially are foreign nationals. And those are the ones that we worked with on this case to put it all together. On both ends of it, it was that same group of individuals. The amounts are crazy too. I mean, once again, these are complex issues. They vary. But many of the cases, they're going in there and stealing $20, $40, $60. They're trying to reach a level so that they can go and trade or purchase these things. We hadn't seen that before, where it's literally you're being directed. Here's how you can get your ID. You go and steal these things, you get an ID. And that's what we're hearing. And we're hearing it from, as I say, numerous people we take in custody, all separately interviewed, and it's the same thing we keep hearing. And so that's what directed us to this location where we found all of this. Yeah, this was all from one search warrant we did.
And that was when?
About 5 days ago, 5-6 days ago.
And there's been 3 arrests of sort of like ringleaders?
Yeah, we believe we have the ringleaders on this operation, but we have no illusions that this is the only one going on out there. This is the one that we've got to so far. But as I say, this is so different than some of the other ones that we deal with, because the other organized ones we've been working with other people on where they're stealing things from like Prada and some of the high-end things, that's a whole different motive, whole different MO, what they're doing, where they're trying to sell it later on, usually on the internet, something like this. This is a completely different one. And as you can see, the motives are different here too, so it's harder for us then to try to direct, try to deal with this issue. It's just tricky because we hadn't seen this before.
What do you do with the people who are doing the stealing?
We take them to the state attorney's office. They charge them more often than not with misdemeanors. The amounts, as I say, frequently are very small. I mean, very small. And then the vast majority of them are released. I think probably close to most all of them are released from custody.
So they don't end up doing serious crime?
No. And we do have some people, I don't have the numbers with me now, we do have some people that we see multiple times. That's not unusual either. With foreign nationals, non-foreign nationals, we get retail theft is somewhat of a repetitive crime for many of them. But we have seen some of them out there multiple times.
I'm sorry, did you say when this started?
The arrests, as you can see from the chart that we had up here, and we can flip it to you, it just has been exponentially growing over and over and over until it's really started peaking. But we had seen this going on for a while, and we're on pace this month right now to break last month's record as well. So it's something that, as I said, you can see when it sort of started. March, April, it was really not a lot of numbers. But then once we hit May, it started increasing to where the last 4 months it's really been, exponentially increasing. So we saw that. And then, as I said, when we started making the arrests, we started doing interviews right away because we were trying to figure out, okay, we get certain types of thefts, but some of these thefts weren't making as much sense. But then all of a sudden it made complete sense. If this is being utilized so that you can then get a card so you can work, I get it.
Based on the graphic that you show there, the undercover operation took place in the River North area.
Well, the arrests were made in some of the stores along River North, primarily along Michigan Avenue, but we also do some on the other side of the river. And from those, it was actually the very first one was a typical misdemeanor arrest. So it wasn't big numbers, big things. It was a misdemeanor arrest of somebody along in one of those stores that we took into custody. And from that, we developed information, but then we were getting it from other individuals as well.
Can you specify the charges that the 3 people you arrested are facing?
Yes. No, I didn't. I skipped through that one because we have it written for you. We can give it to you as well. But their charges are, I got it right here: duplicating and manufacturing, selling fraudulent ID cards, which is a Class 3 felony, and manufacturing, duplicating fraudulent ID permits, which is a Class 4 felony. All 3s and 4s are probationable cases, and the amount of time potentially is 1 to 3 years or 2 to 5 years.
Are they migrants themselves too, or the
The, the three individuals are foreign nationals from Mexico.
The people that were conducting the theft, I mean, I imagine you said they're foreign nationals, but do you know from where? Like, can we differentiate?
The vast, yes, I'm sorry. The vast majority of them were from Venezuela.
Of the ones conducting.
Yes.
And for those who are then caught in turn using these documents, what criminal charges?
We have not had those specific ones. We're catching them in the retail theft, so they haven't gotten these yet. So we may have one or two cases. I'd have to look where, as sort of an aside, when we take someone in custody, we find an ID that is not legit. But that hasn't been nearly as big as these other types of crimes.
So they can face legal consequences for using them?
Yeah, I don't know what they are, though. That area, I'm not sure of. But traditionally, all times when you're purporting to put forward an ID that's not legit, there are penalties attached to it. They traditionally are not very serious penalties.
And Sheriff, are you recovering IDs that people have had stolen, or you're seeing stuff that's coming
No,
back?
the majority of the ones we found here were all ones where they just were adding different dates of birth and things. But they get them from a wide range of places. So sometimes, and I'd be lying to you if I told you we had gone through each and every one of these at this point in time. But sometimes they actually do. They lift an entire person's, information that they've got either on the internet or from some other method and threw it down here. Other times it's not as sophisticated. Some of this is sophisticated. I'd be lying to you to give you percentages, but a lot of it is legitimate people's information that has been stolen from a separate pool. The theft of people's IDs or information is, we all know, it's just exploded. And so it's relatively easy for people operating in this world to access some of that information. How much of this is 100% accurate, where it was lifted from a legitimate person, we haven't run that part of it out yet.
Now, you said that this shows the need to find a solution to the ongoing crisis. In your mind, what's that solution?
Well, obviously that's above my pay grade, but, yeah, exactly. But clearly, when you see this amount of this activity, and the part I found fascinating was the amounts that were being stolen were by and large small amounts, incrementally small, completely different from the cases we were getting where people were stealing from the very high-end stores and really expensive things. It's clear what the motive is here. So if the motive, which is creating this crime at least, is people who are looking to get a card so they can get a job, we sure should be trying to facilitate helping that issue and doing it in a quick way. I know there's been efforts that have been complicated but also very slow. So that would be something that there needs to be some type of reckoning with. That, I mean, in a roundabout way, you have to say to yourself, what do you expect these folks to be doing here? We can have all the debate in the world about whether they should be here or should not be here. They have that debate. But if they are here, we certainly shouldn't be closing our eyes and saying, let's just see what happens. I bet it's all going to work out fine. People get by without food and get by without resources all the time. No, of course not. So in this narrow area here, the permitting should be something that should be addressed, because clearly most of the people we're talking to on this are people absolutely looking for this ID to get a job. And we have that other whole spectrum of people where absolutely that has nothing to do with anything. You get whole different motives. That's why when we've gone about doing this down on Michigan Avenue, we really have tried to put people in different types of categories to try to figure out what the motives are so we can try to get at it. And this one here, we know what the motive is, and we just wish there was more intervention to deal with what could be an obvious solution here.
The longer this situation with these migrants in limbo goes on, are you starting to see other sorts of antisocial behavior that would add weight to your argument that something that
Yeah, one of the things that I just want to put in terms of concerns, because, sometimes people take certain parts of things, and I'm not talking in the media, I'm talking about people in the government, and then they start inflating it for different purposes. I have worked for many, many, many years now on trafficking, that's a very big concern of ours, because if you want to talk about trafficking, as I say, I've become somewhat well-versed in this, unfortunately. I can tell you the pool that the targets routinely go after are individuals who have a certain level of desperation, a certain level of need for money, and they have to be off the grid somewhat. So we've been working with a couple other entities to give presentations on this issue at different locations where migrants are at for that purpose. But wow, I'll tell you, my radar went way up on that. And I'd be lying to you if I said, oh my God, it's going on all over the place. I just know this is the target group that they traditionally go after. And
We've got data that suggests that migrants are being trafficked right now.
no. Yeah, you know, you get a case here and there. Yeah, you get a case here and there. But based on all of the work that I've done all these years, I can just tell you that is literally the target group that you traditionally get. You absolutely get that. And it's not because of their migrant status, it's the sort of the desperation part of it. And so that's a really big concern as well for us. And as I say, we're trying to do some proactive things there, but it's tricky as well.
Any chance you're willing to disclose the specific locations where these thefts were happening?
I would have to look, but I don't think necessarily I'd have a problem doing that, because I think most of it's public documents anyways. It's because the rest are, and I wouldn't try to screw around by giving you 5 billion documents, but I think like on that chart you can see like the rest were like 90 or so, something like that. So it'd basically be 90 police reports. Not all of them, clearly not all of them had anything to do with this. That would be the arrests and stuff, but as I say, we've been charting all this stuff. So we have it in some format. I would just have to look at what it is that we have and that would be useful for you. But there's some stores that have been somewhat immune. And what we found, based on all the work we've done, it's because they really put a lot of thought into it. And so it's to change the man. There's other ones where we get a lot of activity out of. And so it really runs the gamut. Most of it's really logical, though, to be honest with you. It's like certain ones are doing things that prohibit it. Some of them weren't, but are now. They weren't prosecuting at all. I mean, they're literally, their corporate management had said, we don't put our hands on people and we don't prosecute people. And I literally went into a couple stores where it was the same guy that was stealing multiple days in a row, just walking out the door with stuff, like almost waving. It was like, well, this is not going to work real well. And it wasn't. And so some of them have changed behavior, but there's some that have bigger issues than others.
Do we know what the ringleaders were doing with the stolen goods once they collected them? Were they selling them online?
I'm not sure about that. I do know some of it, they were coming to them with the cash that had already been, so they'd already sold it in some form or another and gotten cash, and that would explain this. Other ones, I'm not 100% sure, what exactly they're doing, because that in and of itself has been really tricky, as you can imagine, trying to find that out. And we have loads of different operations going on. Obviously, I can't talk about them, but it's much more complex than you can imagine. And I just can't emphasize enough to you, not just because I still use a flip phone, but the internet has just made this thing where it's on steroids, where it's difficult. We've engaged with a lot of the different sites to say, can you help us in a more proactive way and seeing things that don't make sense. But even in their defense, it is a little bit tricky at times to know this or that was stolen and it's being fenced on. And I'm not saying, oh, good, the good old days. The old days, though, it used to be there was individuals whose primary career was selling stolen stuff. Now individuals are stealing these things and they go right to the internet with it and they sell it up there, and it's wildly tricky to track that down then. So we have a mixture here. No, it was really small. I'm trying to think. I read it a day or two ago, and it was across the spectrum, but it was a lot of small stuff. We can get you some ideas what they are, but it was small stuff. There was things from like like pharmacy type stores that were just like deodorants and smaller things. There were some bigger things, but it wasn't like as I say, we have this whole other category of people that they're stealing really expensive stuff. This, by and large, was absolutely not the case. Yeah, that's why. And so Yeah, and see, that's one of the things when we were tackling this thing. We're trying to, it's like, we got to get at the motive because we can't stop this thing. We don't know why certain things are going on. So this, like, the general group, not the people that were selling this stuff, but the people who were stealing for these, motive is completely different, and so we have to approach it different. So it's been interesting because they say, you can say by those numbers again, this wasn't really on anyone's radar screen for a long time, and then all of a sudden it started going like this, and then it just started going like that. So it's really, we're adjusting.
Sheriff, just to get an idea, how much can this run for? Just to get an idea how many times they have to steal to try to make the money to get this one and stuff like that. How much does they, on average, run for? What were they being asked?
That's a good question. This group, about $150 would be what the average asking price was for one of these IDs. So about $150. Collectively, all of this stuff added up to about $30,000 worth of illegal IDs.